Earl 5, 4, 3, 2, action.
All right, welcome back to What's Going On with Earl Ingram. And if I had to spend the last day of the year or coming up to the last day of the year with one person, I couldn't find a better person to spend it with than my cohort in trouble, none other than Mr. Robert Miranda Flack. Hey, good morning to you, man. How you doing?
Good morning, Earl. Good morning, everybody.
Man, I've been watching this whole thing with DEI, and you and I talked a little bit about it before, and you know, I knew that there was something, a lot of things at the root of it, and then I came upon this article, and this article is written by a gentleman named let's get it's coming right now. His name is Jacob Savage, and he wrote an article called "The Lost Generation." It's in a magazine called Compact. And what he talked about, Robert, is that at the root of DEI and what is happening is the poor white millennial male has been left out, and all the different things that have happened. That poor white male millennial is being pushed to the end of the bus. He's not being treated fairly, and so this has to be fixed because that poor white male represents a millennial represents the future of many of white people in this nation, and that poor white male can't he doesn't have any money because he can't get a fair shot, which means he can't get married, he can't start a family early. You and I know what that means and the reason that that's such an issue. But I think the majority of the people in this country don't even understand why that's an issue and why this is so important and why DEI is the main topic with President Donald Trump and others. You're a minority, I'm a minority. Uh, we've seen in our lifetimes, you know, us being at the back of the bus. They certainly have not opened the door to the degree that we are now sitting at the front of the bus. Equity has not come into the picture. Let's stop acting like equity has happened. And so, because of affirmative action and diversity, equity, and inclusion, all of a sudden things are now fair and balanced and equal. You, for heaven's sake, you in the military. You went, fought for this nation overseas. Was there equity in the military?
Yeah, everybody had the equal right to die. Everybody had the equal right to bleed. Everybody had the equal right to watch for each other and defend each other at the
Well,
trenches.
you're talking about the grunts. I'm talking about,
Yeah. Well, but
yeah,
I'm talking about at that level, we knew it don't matter what skin color you are.
right.
We
Oh,
depended
yeah,
on each
right,
other.
right,
We had to work with each other.
right.
you know. But when you get out of the military and you get into civilian life, that no longer plays out because then what happens is in civilian life, then we divide ourselves into skin color politics, identity politics. But we don't do it consciously. It's being taught to us by the powerful people who are putting out this nonsense about what's going on with the poor white man. Because the people who are putting this whole thing out about how the poor white man is being left out never gave a damn about the poor white man before. This isn't about the poor white man or black and brown and Asians and all these other people being able to get into areas that once were exclusively white. This is about the rich white man
Yeah.
protecting what he was able to have a legacy and generations of wealth to build on. This is all about the billionaire class and the multimillionaire class protecting their positions in institutions in this country from being diversified. And if it's diversified, then what happens is the door is open for more competition that does not allow their children to gain access to the wealth that they've had access into for generations. And with that access come poor white people that didn't have that access before. But they're using this as a way to try to knock the DEI out of the whole equation, because they know the areas of the elite class are diversifying more, and that means more of their children are not able to gain access easily to the elite schools, to the better jobs, and to all of the amenities that accompany having been generationally wealthy over the years in this country.
So diversity, equity, and inclusion is masked as giving Black people and other people of color opportunities that whites don't get. They never talk about the female aspect of diversity, equity, and inclusion, which
or the
really,
poor white male.
Yeah,
because it does open up the door for poor white male too. It does. It opens up the door for white women, and it opens up the door for poor white men. They don't talk about that. That they don't want to talk about. But they will talk about how the numbers reflect that white men, and they use white men as a way to bring the poor white male into that number. Now, if you look all throughout this country's history, if you look in various geographical areas of this country, and I'll point out the Appalachian Mountains.
Right.
Look at the generations and generations of white men over there, poor white men that have never advanced, They've always stayed in that position they're in to this day. They didn't give a damn about them before, because they've had always, the wealthy white male has always had the door open for him and his family and his connections. That's it. Poor white males were never allowed into those doors, but they need to blame the fact that they're losing a lot of positions now on people of color because of DEI.
So let me ask you, Robert, let's just pick Harvard as an example. I hear people saying, well, some wealthy people, it's not fair that, I graduated from Harvard and I can't get my son into Harvard because diversity, equity, and inclusion.
Or because your son ain't smart enough.
Well, see, there you go. Hey, see, Robert, there you go with that stuff.
You mean to tell me Donald Trump Jr. is smart? Why do you think Barron couldn't get into some of those elite schools?
Well,
they're not all smart. Just because they got billions of dollars in their bank account don't mean they're smart.
Well, see, Robert, you just stole my thunder. You keep stealing my thunder. But the truth of the matter is, man,
brilliant minds think alike.
And the truth is, you can't say that because your son didn't get into Harvard and you graduated from Harvard, still the majority of the people in Harvard are white people.
Mm-hmm.
That percentage is overwhelming. So it's not that whites aren't getting into Harvard. There are people who are getting in because they're smarter, they score higher. Those are Asians, those are women.
Right.
Those
are poor white men.
Yeah, yes. Okay.
That never had anyone in their family over the generations be able to attend Harvard. Now all of a sudden, in 2025, one of their children, for the first time in generations of that poor white family, has entered into Harvard, because not only were they smart, but because DEI was there to take away the legacy programs that were established at Harvard to protect the door being open for the rich kids who weren't as smart as that kid.
Robert, the average American is not seeing it that way. They don't understand it from the complexities of what it is you're pointing out. What they have been led to believe is the white man is being discriminated against,
Right.
and diversity, equity, and inclusion and affirmative action has now pushed the white man further down. But what they fail to understand is at the root of all of it is zero population growth. And the fact that there's not one white being born for every white that's dying. And they're concerned about, when you talk about legacy, the legacy of this being a white country.
Mhm.
It's part of the reason why they don't want any more immigrants coming in, because they see those numbers. The demographers know, Robert, right? Maybe not the average person, but the demographers know that it's inevitable that this nation is not going to be a white nation forever. And so when you're talking about these different areas where DEI has come into play, it only makes sense that this nation is not going to be majority white forever.
Well, and the other thing that's driving the friction is fear, and the fear of the white population thinking that once they become minority, that a retribution, that a reckoning will be coming towards them, which is the fear that Trump and all of these billionaire class legacy wanting to maintain kind of populations are pushing out there for the poor white man to rally around their cause.
The poor white man doesn't understand, as you stated, that the billionaire cares less about him.
That's right.
He cares the same that he cares about any other poor person.
Right.
Being white is not enough in the eyes of those who control
people,
it all.
Exactly. I mean, all you got to do is look at the way they talk about people. You know, where there are videos and YouTube videos of billionaires standing in front of Christmas trees, laughing and joking, saying, "You poor white F's," and this and that. You can't. This is what Christmas is supposed to look like. They got 300 packages of gifts under a Christmas tree. Like, it's your fault. You're in the position you're in. But they're able to twist it into a racial thing because they've always had the idea that in order to skim and scam and con the poor white male, you have to give him something to see that makes him think he is better than people of color in this country. And up until about the time segregation was eliminated, white people were able to see they were better than black people because in front of them, there were white fountains and black fountains. Places where black people could go and places where white people should be at. But places that black people couldn't go and places that white people controlled. And so that gave the poor white the impression that he had supremacy and power and he could see it. Since segregation was taken away, the billionaires could not control poor white people as much. And because there wasn't that ability to see the privilege of being white anymore. So now what they had to do was they had to try to find a way to go ahead and get poor white people to see that they are better than black people. And how better to do that is to do like Lyndon Baines Johnson. I'm going to read his quote. I'm going to read his quote here because I think that's very important.
So I got it up, Robert. I'll read it. So Lyndon Baines Johnson, former president of the United States, if you can't convince the lowest white man he's better than the best colored man, he won't notice you're picking his pocket. He'll give him somebody to look down on, and he'll empty his pockets for you. Now,
the billionaire class in this country knew this. And so they had to point out DEI as a problem and threatening to the ability of poor white males to advance because they need to have something to detract away from the fact that the billionaire class in this country are picking their pockets and scamming them like they're doing today.
You know, Robert, listen to this. There are many stories we tell ourselves about race and gender, especially in academia. You're an academia, but the one thing everyone I spoke to seemed to agree on, it's best not to talk about it. At least not in public, at least not with your name attached. The humanities are too small. A millennial professor nervously explained, there's a difference between thinking something and making common knowledge that you think it, said another. So it came as a bit of a shock when David Austin Walsh, a Yale postdoc and left-wing Twitter personality, decided to detonate any chance he had at a career with a single tweet. I'm 35 years old. I'm a 4+ year post PhD. And quite frankly, I'm also a white dude, he wrote on X. Combine those factors together, and I'm, for all intents and purposes, unemployable as a 20th century American historian. And he's saying he is because he's not getting the same fair shot.
You know,
You're in the university.
you know, in this country, starting in about like the late 1970s, 1980s, the universities all started becoming corporatized. They started becoming corporatized and they started focusing a lot more on business related curricula. Everything was just related to businesses. The humanities, the social sciences, all this other stuff was slowly being defunded because in the new economy that was being built at the time by Reagan, the focus was to build America into a more modern industrial power, right? In order to do that, you had to create more business-minded people.
Right.
So the social sciences, the humanities, all those other non-corporate related kind of curricula at the universities weren't being funded, and a lot of the funding was going towards building new business schools and building. And so, in the decades since the early 1980s, we have seen slowly a turn away from the philosophers and the historians and the social sciences, and we have seen this growth in business-related curricula and business-related schooling. And now it's gotten to the point where so many people now have had a good training and good education on business that it's starting to threaten the people who have always controlled business, and that's the billionaires and the multimillionaires who've always had the control of business. And now they're seeing that these people who now have been educated in the business and in the marketing and all that other stuff that relates to building businesses. Now they're saying, okay, we put ourselves in problem. We have to find a way to limit the access of these people of color, of these poor white people. DEI. Let's go after DEI because that's the way we could go ahead and reduce their numbers and continue to keep the door open for our children.
So Rob, white millennials, and that's who they're focusing on in this whole subject matter, is poor white millennial men and how they've been left out of the equation. Truth be told, Robert, the opportunities for anybody, be they white males, black women, or whoever, are going to be less and less because certainly technology is cutting back on a lot of opportunity. They're not even taking any of that into consideration.
Exactly. And they were told years ago, like I remember reading books on this back in 1990 and 1991. There's one book that sticks out in my mind today. It's a book written by an author named Jeremy Rifkin. And the name of the book is End of Work. And he talked about what's going to be happening here in the next 30 to 40 years with automation and AI and all this stuff. And this is a classic attempt by the richest of the rich in our society to continue to seek and find ways to maximize the profits that they can gain.
Right.
And one of the best ways to do that is to destroy labor, is to destroy the need for human capital to build capital in your business. And automation and AI and all that other stuff that they're doing, robotics and everything, is all designed to maximize their profits. Now, we need to focus people's attention away from this reality. So what do? They pit people against people. And people are gullible to fall in line with it because of the historical racism, the white supremacy, the hate that has ingrained in this country for hundreds of years. This is a rooted hatred that they know they could take advantage of.
Robert, man, you just pointed out just so succinctly, man, because this AI and the advancement of all the technology that's coming, we haven't even begun to see the impact of it yet. But when it hits, it's going to keep on hitting.
It's going to keep on hitting, and
being white is not going.
It ain't going to matter what color you're.
It really is not.
You better learn how to be doing some home gardening, because if you want to eat, you better have your ability to know soil and grow some stock, because you're not going to find jobs out there in the next maybe 50 to 100 years.
Robert, and it's situated in such a way that this is coming, and it's situated in a manner where the richest are just going to get richer and richer and richer.
Exactly.
That's what the whole thing is about.
Right.
The greed of that 25% that are at the top, and they don't give a rip.
They are looking to build their own euphoria, their own utopia, and they are looking to build their own society, and it's going to be an exclusive club, like George Carlos said. It's a big club, and you ain't in it.
Look, man, over the course of the 2010s, nearly every mechanism liberal America used to confer prestige was reweighted along identitarian lines. 7 white male Generation Xers won the MacArthur Genius Fellowship in 2013 alone, the same as the total number of white male millennials who've won since. So let me repeat that. Over the course of the 2010s, nearly every mechanism liberal America used to confer prestige was reweighted along identitarian lines. 7 white male Generation Xers won the MacArthur Genius Fellowship in 2013 alone.
Mm-hmm.
The same as the total number of white male millennials who won since. So over a 12-year period, only 7 white male millennials have won this Genius Award, where 7 of them won it in 2010. Is that because they're discriminating against the white man, or is that because they opened the door to more than just white people?
It is self-explanatory, isn't it?
Yeah.
I mean,
it's not that they're discriminating against white people. They opened the door to others.
Exactly. And the door that was never opened was to those poor whites, to those middle-class whites that didn't have the connections, that didn't have the networks to push themselves in. And that's the door that's being opened by DEI. But frankly, when you talk about DEI, really, the white population is benefiting the most from it. Poor white males, middle-class males, white, and females, white, are benefiting from DEI the most. The reason why they're able to point out that Black and brown people are being treated preferentially is because when you are sitting in a room with 25 white people and you see 2 or 3 black people and 3 or 4 brown people
and women,
and women, then you say, oh, they are getting preferential treatment. Because from the eye, from what you see people rising up. And the people that you're used to seeing in a room that should be all white male
and has been all white.
and has been all well, they were white males. They've been used to that. They're seeing, well, it must be true what these people are saying about DEI. And the reality is DEI has opened the door for every person who is poor, middle class, to be able to compete against a legacy program that has always controlled the situation.
Robert, I will say to you that just because the door has been open to females or people of color, they didn't open the door for dumb females and dumb people of
Exactly.
color. They opened the door for well qualified.
Exactly.
And to hear people say, well, they're there solely because of DEI hires. No.
You got numbskulls like Kirk out there, Charlie Kirk, who said, when I see a black pilot, he gets concerned if he's qualified. Really? See, that's the kind of mentality these people insert into the poor populations, into the uneducated. That's why Trump says he loves the poorly educated, because he knows he could scam them. He knows he can convince them into believing what he has to say because they're poorly educated. But that poorly educated ain't going to be able to be NASA director. He's not ever going to go ahead and become a CEO for some major corporation
or a 4-star general.
Exactly. So they immediately take advantage of the ignorance of the poorly educated mind, and they twist it and convince them that they're white. They're still supremacy. They're still superior. They're still superior. They're white, and they believe that, and they think that because they're white, they're superior to the people of color around them. And so, why is it that person is driving a brand new Lexus and he's black, and I'm still driving around in my Nova?
So, Robert, let me ask you, because here's the way I see it. You can say that my view is jaded, if you will, but I don't think it is. When the conversation is continuously about the poor white millennial, we've got to do something to make sure that poor white millennial gets a fair shot. I'm not hearing you say anything about all the other people of color and the others that aren't getting any fair shots. You're just focusing on, even though it's been slanted for these centuries for whites, and still to this day it's slanted. But you've now all of a sudden picked out this millennial,
right,
and said, we got to fix everything for him.
Because that's the population that they rely on to push the political agenda.
Yeah.
That's why they're focusing on that population. Rather than say, look, poor white millennial, we can defeat what the billionaire class or what the multimillionaire agenda is against us if we unite all of our peoples together and realize that we all have a common theme and a common goal, and that is to live a stable life, to provide securities for our family, to have jobs, to be able to provide for the next generation in our families. If we could go ahead and all work together, and we could achieve that. But the white millionaire, billionaire class is the one that is promoting the division among us.
Robert, the poor white millennial, I maintain, is not finding jobs because the poor black, the poor Hispanic are also not finding jobs. You know why? Again, technology. Exactly. The fact that industry has left this nation, because the whites before the X's and those kind of things. It's not always about Harvard and Yale. It's about what can the average person find a middle class job in our society that they used to be able to find that was here before, Robert, that's gone because of the greed that has moved it outside of our shores.
Let's look at the absurdity of what they're trying to say. Let's take the universities, for example. In this country, how many universities are there? I think they're like 3,700, 3,800 universities, right?
Right.
How many of them are black universities?
Oh, come on, man.
Right.
Yeah.
There's probably what, maybe 7 or 8?
Yeah.
7 or 8 historically black colleges. 7 or 8.
Yeah, that's it.
You know, and so you look at 3,800 universities all across this country. Every one of them, every major university, every major, I'm not talking about the mediocre university. I'm not talking about research level
Right.
2s and stuff.
Right.
I'm talking about the major universities. Every one of them is majority white. Every one of them.
Well, they will say that whites make up 60% of the population.
And
in the nation.
And so what you're telling me is we pose a threat to your ability to succeed? Really? And so you got the
long term. They're thinking long term.
Yeah, they thinking stupid terms.
Right.
That's what they're thinking. That's not long. That's just stupid terms. They need to just realize that they're being conned and played in order to protect the people who don't care about them. The same people who don't care about their families getting health care, the same people who are threatening to take away grandma and grandpa Social Security, the same people who are cutting the jobs and putting robots to replace workers, they don't care about you. But they want you to fear black people and brown people because those are the people who are going to threaten your job and your lifestyle. Give me a break.
You know, Robert, we're having this conversation not to denigrate anybody. We're having this conversation to put DEI into perspective.
Right.
Because when you hear it explained like this, over the past 2 years, I've spoken with dozens of white male millennials, excavating hopes and dreams, disappointments and resentments to a man. They insisted on anonymity. There were frenzied pre-publication negotiations over what personal details I could include, back and forth over words and phrases, requests to change pseudonyms to sound even less like real names. Standing behind it was a fear that they would end up being that guy. Even the successful white men I spoke to understood that something had fundamentally changed. They expressed gratitude and relief, a recognition that success was contingent, easily disrupted by circumstances beyond their control. There was so much fragility to things going well in the first place. One tenured professor told me that it's natural to think a slight perturbation would have meant things were worse. Okay. These are professors, okay? Right. These are higher education people who are feeling that way, Robert. Imagine those on the lower rung.
Sometimes when I hear the anonymity or people who don't want to identify themselves by an author that's promoting this nonsense, I have to call BS. Because, a true article, a true story that has really powerful facts that back it up would cite people who are not afraid to talk. Because the idea is to always be able to debate about it.
Right.
Not to hide behind anonymity, but to debate, because debate is where the facts come out. So if you're able to identify who you're interviewing, the debate can go ahead and encompass that person you're interviewing and show the public, well, this is what this interviewer said, and this is what the response was. But here are the facts being provided by other people who are being identified as experts. And these are the facts that refute what is being said. Anybody who always says, I seen this, or I seen that, or I have an interview with someone who doesn't want to identify themselves. The sources told me this. I take that with a grain of salt. It's not solid. I mean, and I get mad when media does that too. When news journalists do it on all fronts,
Right.
from conservative to liberal, when they start saying sources tell it, you know what? Hey, let's stick to the facts. I remember growing up during times of Walter Cronkite. He never said the source.
No,
He
man.
never said, or the reporter, Merle.
Yeah. Edward Murrow.
Edward
Edward J.
Murrow. They never said sources told us. No. Where did that whole nonsense of sources and anonymity come from? You need to be able to identify the fact and put it out there and have the fact either stand on its own or be able to fall apart. And that means being able to quote the individual who stated that.
Robert, people may ask, why are you having this conversation? Why are you having? I'm having this conversation, Robert, because for the last few years, we've saw this attack on diversity, equity, and inclusion,
Right.
and it's ramped up. It didn't just start; it's actually been in the background. They've been dealing with planning this for a decade or more.
They've been
assault.
planning this after they passed the segregation law.
Absolutely.
They've been dealing with how to revert.
And so they've gotten to a point where now they can say these things out in the open, Robert.
Yeah.
Okay.
Free speech.
Right. To say to people that people who've been discriminated against for centuries, that now it's not right to discriminate, and you don't fix discrimination by discriminating against white people. I'm like, wait a minute, man. You can't say to me as a black man who's been discriminated against, continues to be discriminated against, that okay, discrimination is wrong. We'll admit it's wrong, but you don't fix it by discriminating against white people. That doesn't fly with me, man. That's not an acceptable exchange, Robert. How can it possibly be? Okay, with what people of color and women have faced in this nation, that all of a sudden now one generation of white guys are complaining that they're not getting a fair chance, so we're going to do something to fix it for that generation. Never mind all the other generations of the others in this nation who are also Americans, Robert. Hey, Robert, Americans include everybody, man.
The white man that is pushing all that is the white man crime victim.
Yeah.
Okay. He's a victim, He now is a victim of society because he couldn't pick himself up by his own bootstrap. He thinks that he can't get along, he can't get up in the world, he can't do better in the world because everybody wants to help the black man advance and succeed. That is just the biggest.
Ask the black man if that's true.
Yeah, I mean,
come on, man.
I mean, he's now repeating what has been historically a part of this nation's agenda, and now the white man is saying, "I'm a victim." So okay, so if you're a victim and you're complaining, what's your resolution? To victimize more people that are not white? To attack people that are not white? To dismantle families that are not white? To berate and destroy the success of families and people and individuals that are not white? That's your resolution to this? Or is it you should be able to say, you know what, I'm going to step up my game. I'm going to step up my game and I'm going to go ahead and show that I, as an individual, am better and can succeed.
So Robert, let me go here. So what they're saying is, you can ask almost every white person or in this nation if racism exists. And those who are truthful will say, yeah, it does exist.
Exactly.
Discrimination exists even today. We know it exists. Okay.
Exactly.
And so but that's no reason to do, and so but my response is if it exists, put the period there.
Right.
Why does it exist? Why does it still exist? Don't give me anything after that. Okay? Fix the fact that racism still exists in this nation and that people, American citizens, are being discriminated against even in 2025 because of the color of their skin or their gender. And then don't come to me and say anything after that about now you got to understand that this is just not right what they're doing to poor white men. Okay? If it's not right what they're doing to poor white men,
how's it right that they're doing it?
That's right.
You
Come
know,
on, man.
exactly. You know, it just goes again. They are inundated with the propaganda of the richest white part of the community that is trying to maintain its control and its legacy programs, and they're using the poor white man to basically protect them from diversifying their portfolios, diversifying their programs, and stopping a diverse population of people competing against their children.
You know what else is happening and has happened in this country, Robert? Is this country, this belief that we're going to go back to the way it was, Donald Trump, let's go back to the way America was. Listen, America used to control the world. We were number one in industry. We controlled everything.
We had influence all over.
We only make up 4% of the global population.
And
we aren't going. China has expanded. It's growing. India, other nations are no longer going to allow America to control everything. So there are going to be less opportunities inside of this country. I don't care how you cut it, especially if you're taking the jobs overseas. They didn't come and take the jobs.
Right.
Business took the jobs overseas.
Right. Business took the jobs because of policies
right.
that were passed through NAFTA and other
yes.
kind of programs that benefited the billionaire class.
Yes.
Looking to want to make more money.
Not the American people.
It wasn't the American people. It wasn't poor white people. It wasn't
right.
black people. It wasn't brown people. It was the billionaire class saying, we got to make more money, so we're going to ship all these jobs overseas.
So less opportunities for Americans,
exactly,
not just white, but black, red, yellow,
everybody in this country, everybody who lives in this country.
Yes, less opportunities.
That's right.
So if there are less opportunities, that means less opportunities for everybody.
Exactly. But
not just the white male.
But to get the population's focus away from the billionaire class and the multimillionaire class, we got to blame. They got to find a way for us to blame each other. You know, I go back to let's look at the pre-depression era. You know, the Roaring '20s and all those stuff. All those white people were doing great. Everybody was doing great. Everybody was just, man, money was rolling. Parties
industry.
Every industry was growing. Everything was going real good. Right? Everybody had jobs. Right. And then everything crashed and everything was getting bad. And then people started looking and they started saying, hey, if I'm doing bad, why aren't those people that live in those mansions doing bad? Why can't those people suffer like I'm suffering? Hey, Franklin Delano Roosevelt knew. He told the billionaires, if you people want to live in peace in America, we got to do something for these poor people.
Yeah.
These poor white people are coming with truckload of manure and they're going to dump them in your front lawn. They're going to attack you. You ain't going to be able to live in those mansions in Manhattan. They're going to break into those houses. They're going to do it. We got to do something. That's why he created the New Deal, because he knew they had to find jobs for these people, because people now were looking at all these people walking around with beautiful coats and top hats and driving all those cars and diamond rings. And they were saying, How is it that I'm suffering during this era and they're living the life of Riley? Hey, we're going to get to that point again.
So Robert, how do we get people to understand what it is we're talking about? And I think that the only way we can do it is through conversations like the one we're having. We need more of these conversations,
Exactly.
not less.
Right.
And yet, how many places are you hearing these conversations?
Because the billionaires control media. They are stopping every corporate media outlet from talking this kind of language.
Right.
That's why independent media sources are important and vital today, because the people then can engage in discussions that make sense to everybody, to bring people together and to push the political button towards being more proactive for the American people than it is to just be proactive for Elon Musk and all of his networks.
Or would you say this is an anti-white conversation we're having?
The poor white man will say it that way. He'll see it that way. But the rich white man will know what we're talking about because he knows his plan. He knows we know his plan. But the poor white man will say, "Oh, they're just being anti-white. They just talk. They're being racist themselves." Because again, they love the poorly educated, and the poorly educated have been trained and have been groomed to hate non-white people, and to see the success of non-white people is being done at their expense.
See, Robert, there was a time in this nation where if you weren't the most educated white guy, they could find a middle class opportunity for you.
Mm-hmm.
Be it heavy equipment operator, be it, a landscaper, be it a drywaller, be it a roofer, be whatever it was. You didn't have to have a college degree.
Right.
But you certainly would be able to live that middle class lifestyle because
After World War II,
right.
That was the growth of the country right there.
Yeah, but see, what we didn't understand at that point in time is we thought that was the way it was going to be forever. Okay, we thought America was going to be that way forever. After World War II, again, we were the only superpower. We all the other nations, their infrastructure was bombed and destroyed. Not America's. America was able to produce everything that she wanted, and that's why industry was so important.
But the thing is, as the world
that was an aberration, though. We thought it was going to be that way forever.
Well, and as the world changed, and as the world grew, and as the world redeveloped, and you saw Europe rebuilding, and Japan and the Asian countries rebuilding, and everybody was rebuilding. Well, the billionaires in the 1970s said, "Hey, instead of paying these Americans $17, $18 an hour for steel, let's just build our steel in Asia where we could pay them 60 cents on the dollar and make our money." And that's when it started changing. When they saw that all the rebuilding going on in those countries and other continents, they could take advantage of the low wages and labor in those countries. They moved all that industry out and built their wealth on that. And then they built that wealth on that in the 80s and in the 90s. And now they're realizing, okay, those countries that were developing and had that labor shortage and were able to take advantage of their labor, now they're realizing those people are going to be like Americans soon, and they're going to be wanting to get paid better wages. So the next step is automation, robotics. Yeah. We don't have to pay nobody. We're just going to produce with robots. We're going to produce with AI, and we don't have to pay nobody. And with the rest of you people, you're going to have to just find a way to survive.
My friend, we're going to have to leave it there for now. But man, Robert, I just love having conversation with you, man, because it you can't find enough people who are willing to fight back and to stand and tell the truth and be true. What's the purpose of your life, man, if you can't be free? They told me I was free, so I don't know any other way, right?
I'm free to use my speech.
Hey, that's how I see it, right?
Yep.
They tell me I have freedom of speech, right? They tell me I'm an American, and so you do. We're not yelling fire in a movie theater.
We're just stating what is the obvious.
Yeah.
It's there for you to read, and it's there for you to see. It's happening all around you. What you need to do is just take off the racism eyes and open your mind more to the fact that this isn't about race. It's about economics. It's about who controls the wealth of this country.
Race is not ever going to be enough.
Yeah.
All right, man. Thanks. See you again in the upcoming year.
Yes, sir.
All right. The one and
Happy
only
New Year.
Robert Miranda. We'll end it at that. Happy New Year.